Broadleaf weed control in wheat. It used to be 2,4-D, maybe even little dicamba, Darren, but now we've got a lot better and safer options.
I remember that growing up. I remember a lot of times it'd be a pint of 2,4-D. We'd head out into the wheat field and try and control broadleaf weeds, and you know what? It worked. And about a week later, there's some more weeds coming up. And we thought, man, is it more weeds coming up, or did we just burn stuff down and not completely take it out? And you look at the new options that are out, and I say new kind of in a loose way because things like Bucktrol have been used for many years. Now we find that in a combination product called Husky, where it's mixed with an HPPD. And if you're not familiar with that class of chemistry, it's really been the most popular broadleaf chemistry being used in corn. And when we see products used in corn and being successful, very many times that gets brought over into wheat. So they've got these two products mixed at a pretty reasonable price point. And we've got broad spectrum broadleaf control. Another one of these newer products, as I would say, is Wide Match. It's Stinger and it's Starring. It's products that have been used in other crops. They're being used in wheat very successfully because you think about broadleaf weeds in wheat, well, kochia and Canada thistle have been two of the most problematic broadleaf type weeds. This one is excellent on both of those. And then you look at all the other things that you could mix with them. Now it might be 2,4-D, although I would caution you against that. You see 2,4-D used to be used in corn. Farmers quickly moved away from that when there were other options. The challenge in wheat has been, wheat is grown in a lot of areas where people are very cost conscious. And you know what, I might not get a crop, I'm in a dry area, I don't want to spend much, and 2,4-D used to be really cheap. Well, now 2,4-D isn't as cheap anymore, and there are actually some options that may be even cheaper than 2,4-D that are safer on the crop. So you should really consider some of those as well.
Well, what Darren's talking about there for safer options specifically would be Addition Broad Spec and Addition Tank Mix. Yes, there are some other products out there, but these are by far the most popular ones. It is still good on many different weeds out there. So you could throw some Addition together with either Husky or Wide Match, and now you've got a much more broad spectrum product. But when we talk about broad spectrum, Husky to begin with is a lot more broad spectrum than what Wide Match is. So if you say, look, all I've got is kochia and Canada thistle, I'd tell you absolutely go Wide Match. Like Darren said, that product is excellent on both those weeds, but the problem is it's not very good on a whole lot else. So that's where you need to throw in some Addition, and a lot of guys have thrown some 2,4-D in there. You can do that, but what happens a lot of times is you'll see that wheat kind of dinged up. If you look real close, you'll see a little bit of lodging, you'll see some of the stems a little off kilter. It's not good. And if you actually do some side-by-side yield checks, very often we would guess on your farm, just like we've seen before, you'll find a bushel or two yield loss. So why do that when you have the safer options?
It depends too. If you're out there at a real critical time of growth and you say, man, I'm really pushing it here, I might be past the spray window, and you still have 2,4-D in the tank, that's where you see big time injury. And what I've talked to many guys across the country that have done is, you know what, I'll start out and I'll spray the first half of the field without the 2,4-D and I'll use something else. Then when I get to the next batch, I'll put 2,4-D in and I'll see out in that field if I see a yield difference between the two sides. What I would suggest is make that 2,4-D strip very small because you're going to be happy with the yield on the other side.
But the whole thing is, are you visually going to see a difference in the tank? Most of the time, no, because you can't pick up a 1 or 2 or even a 5 bushel difference in the tank. Even on the yield monitor, what are your yield breaks? I'll bet you when you run your yield map, your breaks in wheat are 5 bushels or more. So in other words, anything that gained you a bushel or 2 bushels or 3 bushels, it's not even going to show up on your yield monitor. You've got to look really, really close whenever you're trying to pick out these little things. So all we're trying to say here is Wide Match is a great product for kochia and for Canada thistle. Husky is a great product for a lot of other weeds. If you need a tank mix partner, rather than 2,4-D, you can go with something a little bit less expensive, like an Addition product, an SU, and there are plenty of other products out there too that are going to be safer than 2,4-D and in a lot of cases less expensive. So you can save money, get a little bit better yield, still do a great job on the weeds. That's what we're all after.
So with broadleaf weed control, you may be tempted to say, well, wheat prices are down this year, I really need to cut back. Don't cut back on your broadleaf herbicide. If you let weeds go in your field, you're going to give up yield. And for the little amount of money you're going to spend on weed control, it's well worth it this year.
Well, speaking of weed control, we'll tell you how to stop this week's tough weed coming up later in the show.